The Boring Wars of the United States. Boring history for sleep. The boring history of American wars continues quietly beneath everything, the soil holding the weight of all that has happened without complaint. The country does not forget, but it does not speak either. It keeps its stories in silence. The people live on the land, and the land remembers, without effort. From the beginning, the wars were less about enemies and more about change, about the way the country kept growing, stretching outward across forests and plains and deserts, each expansion a kind of slow conflict. The wars with the native peoples were not battles in the way songs tell them. They were years of slow pushing, building, burning, resting, and moving again. A long exhaustion of two worlds trying to survive in the same space, one with memory, one with hunger, and the land between them carrying both. It was not quick. It was centuries of movement and loss, treaties written and broken, promises spoken and swallowed, each skirmish a ripple in a river that would not stop flowing. The soldiers who rode through the plains did not see themselves as conquerors, just travelers in uniforms doing what someone somewhere said must be done. And when it was done, the silence that followed was heavy as dust. The land changed names, the rivers changed borders, but the wind did not care. It kept blowing from the west to the east, carrying the sound of history like distant thunder. The people who came after called it destiny, called it progress, but the land called it nothing. It just continued waiting. The wars ended the way seasons end, not with a moment, but with a fading. And the country moved again into itself until the next war began. Wars are not really separate in America. They are one long, unbroken thread of movement, stretching from the first musket fired at dawn to the hum of machines far above the clouds. The Civil War still whispered under the ground when men went to fight in the Spanish-American War. It was a small war, but to those who fought it, there is no such thing as small. The heat, the waiting, the strange land, the distant sea, all of it heavy and slow. The empire was expanding, though no one called it that. They called it duty, they called it freedom, and the words were light enough to carry, but heavy enough to last through generations. The same voices would echo again when ships left for Europe. The first time the world caught fire on a scale too large to imagine, and the United States joined late, but with the tired certainty that it must. The men who crossed the ocean did not seek glory. They went because the train left, and the ship left, and they were told to go, and so they did. And the ocean swallowed them in waves and waiting. The trenches were endless, the rain endless, the waiting endless. The noise of artillery became like breathing, constant, necessary, and when it stopped, the silence felt wrong. The war ended as all wars end, with signatures and speeches and graves, and the illusion that it would never happen again. But it did. And when it did, it was bigger and colder and faster. The Second World War spread across the globe like a slow tide. It touched every coast, every sky, every home. The country became one great machine of making and sending and building. Everything was done for the war. The mornings began with news of it. The nights ended with dreams of it. The soldiers marched across islands and deserts and fields. The women built in factories. The children collected metal, and everyone waited for it to end. When it finally did, there was celebration, but underneath it, exhaustion. No one said it, but they all felt it, the kind of tired that settles into a nation's bones and does not leave easily. Peace came, But it was a quiet kind of fear. The Cold War, they called it. A strange name for something that never stopped being warm with tension and noise. A war without front lines or endings. A war made of waiting and guessing and watching screens glowing in the dark. Missiles slept under fields. Men sat in silos with keys and codes. Submarines drifted under oceans, silent. Cities practiced hiding from what they could never survive. The country lived between heartbeat and silence every day, a small test of endurance. And even as the Cold War stretched across decades, there were other fires, smaller but burning. The Korean War came and went like a breath, a line drawn on a map that never truly disappeared. Then Vietnam, a long, heavy shadow of noise and heat and questions. It was a war that never quite made sense, and yet it went on. Because that is what wars do. They go on until they stop, for no reason that feels real. The jungles thick, the air wet, the soldiers young and old at once. When it was over, no one cheered. The country simply turned away, pretending it had not happened. But history does not allow forgetting, and so it stayed there, quiet but alive beneath everything. The years passed. New wars rose, smaller, faster, cleaner, they said. The Gulf War came on screens, bright and clear, as if war could be seen without being felt. The missiles flew, the cities burned, the television glowed, the country watched from couches and called it victory. But victory was only a word. The soldiers returned, the world moved on, and then came the next. The long desert wars, the wars that never seemed to end. Iraq, Afghanistan, names that became years, whole generations growing up knowing nothing but that somewhere, far away, there was always fighting. The war became background like weather, always there, always continuing. The soldiers went and came and went again. The years folded together until no one could remember when it began or when it would end. It became part of life, like taxes, like traffic, like time itself. When it finally slowed to something like an ending, there was no celebration, just confusion and quiet, and the long, slow unpacking of what it had done to everyone who had touched it. The veterans carried it home in silence. The country moved on the same way it always does, by pretending that the end of a war is the same as peace. But peace is only another pause, and the pause never lasts long. The wars of the United States have never really ended. They have only changed shape, from muskets to cannons to missiles to machines in the sky, from soldiers on horses to men in helicopters to drones that hum like insects above invisible borders. The weapons change, but the rhythm stays the same, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. The country moves from war to war the way the seasons move from summer to fall, not because it wants to, but because it knows no other way. Each generation inherits the memory and the fatigue and adds another layer to it until the history itself becomes too heavy to lift, too long to tell. Yet here it is, told again, in whispers, in classrooms, in bedtime stories, in news reports, in monuments, and in silence, because silence is the truest sound of war, the kind that stays after the drums and the shouting and the headlines have all gone quiet. The land hears it, always, from the old forests of the east to the deserts of the west. The hills remember the rumble of cannon. The plains remember the weight of marching feet. The coastlines remember the ships that came and went and never returned. The rivers carry the stories quietly as they move to the sea, and the sea itself remembers every ship that sank, every soldier who never came home. All of it becomes part of the slow, endless breathing of the country that still calls itself free and brave, though it has spent so much of its life in battle. And maybe that is what freedom has always meant here. Not the absence of war, but the ability to live with its memory, to carry it forward quietly, to fold it into daily life until it becomes part of the air itself, invisible but everywhere. The children grow up learning about wars they did not fight, but feeling them anyway, in the way their parents sigh when they hear certain songs, in the way the flag waves over cemeteries where grass grows thick and undisturbed. History does not sleep.